Miles.
Good morning. Go ahead.
John, with all the depth that you guys have at quarterback, would you consider moving either Nick or CJ in a trade?
Well, I think we never closed the door on anything, but we really like the three quarterbacks that we have. I think we're, it's an extremely important position in this league, and we like each and every one of those guys for what they bring to the table, both in their talent and who they are as people. And so we're big believers in all of them. And traditionally we've been of the belief you keep two because it allows you to do things with your roster, but never close the door on keeping three either. And I think they're all talented players who, like I said, are good people, good leaders, and we're big fans of all of them.
How is McKinnon recovering, and what do you see his role being?
Yeah, Jarek's recovering great. He really is. It's he's I think one of the cool things, we didn't get a chance to see him on the field, but we've been able to see the work ethic that we've always heard about with Jarek McKinnon front and center in his rehab. He's just, he's getting after it. And I think it's been nice for him, and I think he would tell you that, as would Jimmy, that it's been nice to have a partner to kind of push each other. Jimmy was a month behind, and so they've got their own competition going. And that's good, because that's an arduous process, and I think they've been able to help motivate each other. And I think our staff is doing an incredible job of working with both those guys, and we're really encouraged with their prospects and where they're going to be. Not putting a timetable on any of them, but I can tell you that his progress is coming very well.
You've dealt with Alabama players. I mean, is it tough for them to replicate the structure that they had in Tuscaloosa and bring it to the pros where there's more, personal freedom?
Yeah, I would tell you that's not isolated to one school. That's college kids in general. I think this is a big jump. I did it myself. You're a young kid. You have a lot of money all of a sudden. You have a lot of freedom off the field, and you got to grow up in a hurry. And that's a challenge for any college kid, and that's part of what we try to do here and throughout this whole process, is ascertain who can handle that, and also ascertain, okay, if we bring someone in, how do we provide that structure? And yes, it is more difficult at the professional level, I think that's a challenge that every team faces.
For your running game and your offensive line scheme, what are you looking at here as far as drills and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Anything that kind of sticks out at you?
Well, obviously, with the type of scheme, that we play, we need guys that can really get out and move and open up and run. And I think there's a misnomer that we're always looking for a smaller player. No, we'd love a 330-pound guy that can get out and go. That's ideal. But we look for guys, and I think of big quality offensive linemen. I used to have an old coach who used to say, offensive linemen fly airplanes, defensive line jump out, and so we're looking for smart guys to play that position. They have to be able to process very quickly. Our offense, I think everybody knows, we do a lot, and so they have to be able to handle a lot of information and do so in a hurry. And so those are the type of things we're looking for.
Along those lines, how much are you looking at measurables when you're looking at tackle versus a guard or whatever, like online, things like that?
Yeah, we have our ideal profiles for each position. We have tapes that show kind of these are the guys that we think are the ideal fits for our scheme. It's very helpful for our scouts. I think our offensive staff, led by Kyle, do an incredible job. They've even though they're young coaches, they've been in the system for a long time, so they have a great library of what we're looking for. But I think one thing that Kyle and I kind of decided on early on is, while we have ideal profiles, we like good football players. And so they all, sometimes there's an outlier who doesn't have the exact measurables that you're looking for, but the guy can flat out play, and he can make people around him better. So I think you use it as guidelines, and this is what we're ideally looking for, but let's never turn a blind eye to really good football players.
John, you had John Abram at the Senior Bowl, but he wasn't able to participate.
Yeah.
What do you want to see from him here?
Well, I can tell you with him, and I don't get in the practice of talking about each one of these guys, but one thing I was impressed that he showed up, and he wasn't cleared to play in that game, but he showed up, he stayed around, and he kind of became a leader of that squad when he wasn't even playing. That really impressed me with John, and I think I think here he's a very talented football player. His film speaks volumes, and so I think John keeps handling himself like he has. He's going to do just fine.
Antonio Brown hasn't been subtle about wanting to join you guys. Have you had any talks with the Steelers about him that you can see?
We have not. We have not. It's funny the world we live in, where one tweet from a player to another turns into interest and all of that. But hey, that is the world we live in. I can tell you that, like every team in this league, we think the guy's a heck of a football player, but we have not had talks with the Steelers. I can tell you that. Yeah. Eric was really important. We're going to exercise that fifth-year option with him. I think Eric really came into his own, and there's always a process when you come in as a new staff with a new scheme, finding out exactly how and where people best fit. And it's been kind of a evolution for Eric. We started him initially at the outside Leo spot, always knowing that he could move inside and rush. We played him at some big end who plays over the tight end more. And at the end of last year, he was playing the nose tackle, which we never thought he'd be. But you have to be around a player, and they have to be around you for you to find where that best fit is. And what we found, he's a very disruptive player, and he's a really good football player. And we think very highly of him, and so that was an easy decision for us to make, and we're really excited to work with him.
John, how open are you moving down for number 2?
We're always open. Are you interested?
John, why haven't you checked him?
Yeah. Well, so the Leo position is really the open side player. That profile's changed a little with Chris Kasarik coming to us, and so that profile. But basically, that's a guy that can win one-on-one rushes and at a high rate. You have to have a guy who can close out games, close out halves. When you have them, they can be a difference maker. And so, I think we're also looking for powerful players that, that the great thing about Chris Kasarik and what he's going to do and what we've wanted to do and why we were interested in him, he cuts these guys loose, and they're going to be playing with a quick trigger and getting after it. And so, but those are guys that can get to the quarterback and finish him.
John, why have you not checked in with the Steelers on Brown? I mean, it's one of the best players in the league. They're open for business. It's a position you could use an upgrade at. It makes sense, right?
I'll just leave it at he's a great player. We got a ton of respect for Antonio.
John, for you, what have you come to value other than the obvious about having Robbie Gould as your kicker?
He makes a lot of kicks. Yeah, he's solid as a rock. I mean, and that's why we've been working on that. I don't want to negotiate in the public. I don't ever like doing that, but I can tell you that we are huge fans of Robbie Gould. He's been as consistent as they come. I've known Robbie for a long time, and I knew that about him, and we're very hopeful. We did put the franchise tag on him, but very hopeful that we continue talking and try to come to an agreement to keep him around for a while.
How simple was that decision for you, just to use the tag and buy yourself that luxury?
Yeah, we had hoped to get a deal done, and I think Robbie did as well. We weren't able to do that, so at that point, that decision became very easy for us.
John, make an evaluation of pass rushers. You see one of the few times in free agency there might be a pretty good lot of pass rushers available. How do you weigh that versus some of the young draft prospects and what you guys want to do?
Yeah, Steve, I would tell you that it's a great year to be looking for D linemen in general. I mean, this is I hear people talking. I've been doing this for a couple years, but I mean, they're talking 8 years. This is as strong a classes, and in the last 8 years at the defensive line, and I concur. And it's not just exclusively at one position. And there's inside guys, there's outside guys, and you're right. There's some on the free agent now, as I've learned. Typically, those guys get what Robbie Gould got, and they never reach the market. They get franchised, the good ones, and so. But there's a lot of options out there, and how you weigh that, I think you spend a lot of time, and if there's someone, that I think obviously the one thing about free agency is you've seen them at our level, and so if you feel confident and you have room and you don't see exactly what you're looking for, or you have other needs in the draft. I mean, that's the thing you weigh back and forth, and that's a constant conversation that is ongoing, and every team has them, and we've certainly been having those as
John,
well.
when it comes to evaluating defensive backs, you have so many more multi-positional backs in college. How is that different than when you played safety?
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of differences than when I played safety. You know, the style of offenses that they're playing against, you know, some people call it basketball on the grass. So they're playing in space a lot, you know, and so I think that leads to the guys that are very versatile, that safeties that can play corner and cover people, and it's. I don't envy those guys in college football. It is bombs away, and those guys are running fast, and the plays are happening fast. So you better be able to do a lot of things, and you better be able to do it in a hurry, and you can't hit anyone anymore. So you put all that together, and that's why everyone's looking for that special guy who has the total package.
Hey, John, the Broncos hired Rich Gangarelli.
Yeah.
What did you see if you can make him ready for this?
Yeah, I was just really impressed. I think, you know, for two specific examples of the works that Skangs did. I think, first of all, when Jimmy Garoppolo came in, you know, mid-season, in the middle of a season, and Rich is coaching his quarterbacks, but also has a task of getting a guy who we obviously put a lot into to bring into the building, and charging him with getting him ready to play. And so I think the diligence and the skill with which he got Jimmy ready to play, that really is when I took notice of, wow, this guy, he did a really good job. Now, he didn't give Jimmy all that talent, but he did, and that's hard to do because Rich was very much a part of our game planning, and so he had all his other duties, but found a way to get Jimmy ready in short order, and that impressed the heck out of me. I think the work he's done with C.J. Beathard and then Nick Mullins specifically this year, those guys are both great workers, but Skangs is with them and pushing them all the time. I think that spoke volumes to me, and like I said, Kyle gives those guys a lot, puts a lot on their plate in terms of the game plan and bringing ideas, and I think Rich was excellent at that. I think he'll do a real nice job for the Broncos, and we're sorry to see him go because we don't like good coaches going, but it's a great opportunity for him, and I'm happy for him and the Broncos.
What lessons did you learn from the pre-draft process with Ruben, and how have you applied that
Yeah.
to future?
Yeah, we're always learning from every experience with each player that we draft, and so I think you evaluate every player that you bring in, and you say, okay, what went well, and what might we have missed, and I think that will never change. You're always getting better, and I think if I'm doing this 15 years from now, I'll be telling you the same thing. And so I think every situation you look at it and you say, how can we improve? And we constantly are evaluating everything we do, and obviously bringing these guys in and them being successful both on and off the field is critical for what we do. So you always learn from that.
And how important is it to
production and opportunities at Iowa? Kittle has evolved into one of the best all-around tight ends. How did you go about wanting to identify them as a prospect?
Well, I would say he and we were probably the benefactors from us putting a lot of time in on C.J. Beathard early, and then finding out who's this number 46. They don't throw it much, but this guy can run and he can block, and football's really important to him. And he's got some funky movements to him that maybe at first you don't see a crazy athlete, but the more you watch him, he's always pulling away from people. And there's a toughness to his play. There's a will that speaks through the film. And then you bring him in and you still don't know what you're getting, but then he starts doing it at our level against good players. And I think the thing from the jump with George is guys that are really fast, he'd catch the ball and he was pulling away from them. And then people say, well, it's just practice. They're easing up. And then he'd do it in the preseason game, and then he'd do it in the regular season game. And but I think George, the thing he impressed us most with from year one to year two, he struggled to stay healthy a little bit year one. And he took to heart being a professional in every aspect, and the routine he'd have to go to. And he was diligent and tireless, probably had a better offseason than any rookie I've ever seen, and came back, and you could tell, there's certain players you can tell when they come back from what we call those 30 days away, not 30 days off. And George is an example that Kyle will use and will always use, the jump he made from year one to year two because of the work he put in. Obviously, there's a lot of talent, but the work showed this year, and he had one of the great seasons that tight ends ever have.
Is there something Iowa does to develop tight ends too? They got a couple pretty good ones this year.
Gosh, they do. You know, they develop a lot of good football players. I think the thing that we like and a lot of NFL teams like is they do a lot of things that that they're going to be asked to do at the next level. And so George Kittle, for instance, he caught balls, but he also was an inline blocker, and they were running from traditional formations. And so you could see a lot of things. A lot of times you're trying to project. With Iowa, you see the guys do, and Kirk's got an NFL background, and so they put them in a lot of situations that we see our guys in. They demand a lot out of their players. I think they have the type of guys that, you know, kind of their profile, you know, their vision statement for what an Iowa football player is all about, and we've found, and you're right, particularly at that position, they're doing something right.
All right, folks.
All right, thanks a lot.